can they play to get youth, adequately prepared to overcome the unemployment crisis? They have their role to play because, apart from our environment is working over here abroad, but back home. So what do our government, people in offices need to do for us? Thank
Yeah, I think there's a lot. There's a lot that the government can do, but I think it begins with the problem definition. If you don't define a problem, you can't solve it. And I don't think we've gotten to the point where we even know what the problem is in the country. In fact, I think there is the denial that there's even a problem. And it comes into, you have political biases here and there, and even down to the people. Again, who is the government? The government is a representative of the people. So are the people even empowered enough to be able to choose their government? So if we want to go down the root cause of this situation, it will go down a rabbit hole that we might never come out of. But let's look at practical steps, right? Things that can be done. And I think the first thing that the government needs to do is, to really define what, as a country, it sees as the priority for its citizenry, for its youths. That doesn't exist right now. There are different ministries, different agencies, how they impact the end users or the citizenry. It's not visible. What this translates to is that you have people that are thriving to build their own empire and not really dependent on the government for support. Right. So, and that's the resilience that you see with Nigerians. Most Nigerians, the government do not dictate the tone or the direction of travel for its citizenry, and because of that, people just go whatever works. They try to look for remote jobs. They try to look for freelancing opportunities. The ones that can jack back. That's because the government in itself has not defined, what is it that we want to do. For instance, you have the Ministry of Youth or something. What do they do? What are its priorities? Is that public? Is it available for everyone to see? How can the youth start keying into some of those initiatives, if there is even an initiative? In the UK, in the US, in Canada, you go to the government platforms and you see its top priorities. For instance, right now there's a whole buzz around AI. There are free courses that are being, sponsored by the government, trying to educate maybe a certain percentage of its youths, to be future proof and ready for that emerging technology. Again, it's no longer emerging, it's actually here to stay. You know, those are the kind of focal points that the government can put in place to try, to get its people ready for the future of work. But that doesn't exist. And that is one of the biggest problems. Secondly, is data, right? What's the quality of data we have back in the country? Do we really know what our employment rate is? Do we have a statistic that shows those that are in work, those that are out of work, those that are underemployed, those that are unemployed? These are, and it's not rocket science, but is there the political will to even get all of these things done? That's the biggest question. When we elect people into position, not just the election, when the people are appointed into their portfolios, what what qualities or what qualifications do they have to be the lead of those portfolios? Because if you are having someone leading the Ministry of Health, for instance, and he's got no idea on anything that has to do with healthcare or health, or he's not a medical practitioner, yes, there is a chance he can succeed if he's able to arm himself with the right people around him. I don't believe that you must be a specialist for you to thrive especially when you are a leader. Leaders are more of people that can harness the resources and the power of people around them. But when there is no political will, it is difficult for you to even make any impactful change while leading those initiatives or while leading those agencies. So the question is quite multifaceted, or the solution rather. There's a lot of things that the government can do. One is to gather data, right, and make sure that we have a problem definition. in terms of where it is that we want to go as a country. What is the vision for the youths? What's the vision for even those still in school, those that are out of school, those that are unemployed? Do we even know the number of people that are unemployed? What, incubator, there's something they used to have then when you say incubation hubs and stuff that people can go into and, just learn skills without needing to pay anyone, right? You have mentors that are just sat in there providing guidance for people. How many of these hubs do we have in main cities in the country? I think we used to have one in Tinapa back then. I don't know if that still exists. We need to have many of those kind of hubs scattered around. And this is not just about technology. Even when it comes to things like finance, right? Agriculture. Our engineer talked about agriculture just now. These are potential places that you can use to engage people, but you need to begin with the problem definition. When you define the problem, and to define that problem, you need the data. You need to have the right data to start defining the problem, and for all of this to even kickstart, you need the right people in places of power, in places of authority. So you can see I'm drawing back one step after the other, and it begins with the people leading us. Is there the political will? Is there the political know-how? And is there that passion? Is there that drive, or are people just going into government for themselves? And yeah, so we can decompose these issues and really break it down. It's going to be a full day workshop if we want to get to the root of it. But there are things that can be done. But for those things, before we even start tackling the solutions, we need to
Okay.
define it. To define it,
Mr. Emmanuel,
the problem solving